we should be able to see these guys coming in and out. So I started to investigate this, and I found something very bizarre. I found that most of the telescope and probes that observe the sun are owned by no one else but the Vatican. The Vatican. And I was thinking, well, that is strange. What does the Vatican want with the sun? And I noticed, so I started to, kind of keep track of what was going on the sun. And I kept on downloading, material from NASA, from the SOHO probe, which is a probe that's orbiting the sun. And one day, this video was put on the net. This was a while ago, almost 5 years ago now. There's been many others since then. This is a good one. Let's take a look at it. They placed this on the sun. Now this is the probe telemetry. This is the camera. And it has a little arm that has a protective lens because otherwise the electronics would get overwhelmed. And this is the sun surface here. This is a representation of the sun surface. And this is the video. So this video was placed on the net saying comets, sun-gazing comet hits the sun. And a bunch of people downloaded this stuff. And, emailed NASA and said, what are these objects? Because comets usually have extremely long tails when they approach an object like the sun. Do you know how big these objects are? At least the size of the Earth. Okay? A comet the size of the Earth orbiting the sun or approaching the sun should have a very large tail, very visible tail. So, after a whole bunch of astrophysicists emailed NASA going, what are these objects you're calling comets? They retracted the video. And I was lucky to get a copy because after, a whole bunch of people complained when they retracted the video, they put the video back on. But all of a sudden, the objects had tails. However, let's go back and analyze this video a little bit. You can see the stars in the background all going from left to right. Okay, that's because the probe is orbiting. Right? And then you can see all these little white dots. Those are particles hitting the camera. Let's try to find one. You see this one? That's a particle from the sun hitting the camera. So you can ignore these little bleeps. But if you actually go backwards, you will find that there is only one object going towards the sun at first. And then at this frame, you will find two little objects here that appear that in the next frame move from here to here. Can everybody see this?
Not the light.
Oh, the light.
Oh, so much better.
So, from here to there. Right? Now, that's against all the other movements in the background. Okay? And then on the next frame, these two objects become one. Now, that's quite possible if the two objects ended up one behind each other. Right? So now it becomes one to an observer here. And then the next frame, these two objects become the second comet, which makes a 90-degree angle turn. See? Boom, become one, and then starts moving in this direction. So it came from here, it became one here, and then started moving in a completely 90-degree angle direction from where it was going. Now, the only comets that I know of that do that type of crazy movements are the ones that have little windows and little guys in the back waving. Okay?
The size of the Earth?
The size of the Earth. And here you can tell that the objects make most likely a full orbit of the sun, and then boom, enters the sun approximately at 19.47 latitude, probably in the sunspot, and then this huge plasma ejection comes out. Let's take a look at it. Boom. The other thing is the objects don't break into pieces like comets would do. And so I was really amazed to find this video. And I thought, my God, you know, if you were a society that had ships the size of the Earth, you wouldn't be able to go into any small black holes like the Earth. It would be, your ship just would be too big for the Earth. So you'd go for the next fractal level of black holes, you'd go for the sun. But if you were using a smaller ship and you wanted to go through the black hole of the Earth, then you would find that black hole by going through the sunspots of the Earth. These sunspots would be the volcanoes you find on Earth. And that's when I start to realize as well that volcanoes might not be what we think they are. Meaning that, you know, for instance, the most active volcanoes on Earth are at 19.47 latitude. They're right where I live, on the island on the big island of Hawaii. And we find most volcanoes have a large amount of UFO activity. The volcanoes at 19.47 latitude in Mexico have so much UFO activity that the government, the Mexican government, has started to train pilots so that they know where the UFO activity is and they can avoid these routes when they're approaching Mexico City for landing. It's actually become mandatory that they follow that class if they are landing more than a certain percentage in Mexico City. Why? Because Mexicans typically sit on their porch at night and look at the UFOs coming in and out of volcanoes. That's how much activity there is. So I was thinking, well, if you're ship, though, is the size of the Earth, then you'd have to go for the